The gunshot shattered the marble silence like a crack through ice. Screams erupted across the polished floors of Sterling Heights Bank as masked figures stormed through the brass. Revolving doors, weapons raised, voices commanding everyone to the ground. Briefcases hit the floor. Phones clattered. A woman in a tailored navy suit froze mid-step, her hand still gripping the leather handle of her attach case. She was 3 feet from the vault entrance when the second shot rang out. Closer this time, deliberate dot, and then he moved. Not the security guard. Not the manager behind bulletproof glass. A man in worn jeans and a faded denim jacket, holding his daughter's backpack in one hand, stepped directly into the line of fire. He didn't hesitate. He didn't shout. He simply became a wall between the bullets, and the woman who would later learn that some people don't run from danger, they run toward it. And sometimes, the person who saves your life changes it forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The gunshot shattered the marble silence like a crack through ice. Screams erupted across the polished floors of Sterling Heights Bank as masked figures stormed through the brass. Revolving doors, weapons raised, voices commanding everyone to the ground. Briefcases hit the floor. Phones clattered. The morning rush of transactions froze in an instant as terror replaced routine. Collie Rhodes had been reaching for a deposit slip when the chaos erupted. Her hands stilled mid-air, her fingers hovering over the mahogany counter. She stood in her tailored navy suit, pearl earrings catching the overhead lights, her attached case pressed against her ribs. She was the CEO of Rhodes Global Consulting, a woman who negotiated million-dollar deals without flinching, who'd stood before hostile boards and emerged victorious. But nothing in her corporate battlefield had prepared her for this. 3 masked figures moved with brutal efficiency. The tallest one, wearing a black ski mask and tactical vest, fired another shot into the ceiling. Plaster rained down. The message was clear: comply or suffer. Everyone on the ground, now. Hands where I can see them. Callie's legs wouldn't move. She stood frozen, her mind racing through impossible calculations. The vault entrance was 3 feet to her left. The exit was 40 feet behind her. The gunman was 20 feet away and closing. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out everything except the sharp click of a weapon being cocked. "I said down!" The gunman roared, swinging his weapon toward her. That's when he moved. Damian Pierce had been standing near the customer service desk. His daughter Lily's purple backpack slung over one shoulder, a withdrawal slip folded in his back pocket. He was dressed simply, worn jeans, a faded denim jacket over a gray Henley, work boots that had seen better days. His sandy brown hair was slightly too long, brushing his collar, and his hazel eyes carried the kind of tired patience that came from raising a 7-year-old, alone while working 2 jobs. He'd noticed the woman in the navy suit earlier. Hard not to. She moved through the bank like she owned it, confident, poised, untouchable. The kind of woman who lived in a different world than his. But when the gunman turned toward her, when that weapon swung in her direction, none of that mattered. Instinct took over. Damian dropped the backpack and moved. Not away from the danger. Toward it. His body remembered what his mind had tried to forget. The training. The muscle memory. The split-second decisions that separated life from death. He crossed the distance in 4 long strides. His boots silent against the marble despite his speed. He reached Collie. Just as the gunman's finger tightened on the trigger, Damian's hand caught her shoulder, spinning her behind him as his other arm came up, shielding them both. The shot exploded through the air, deafening in the enclosed space. The bullet struck the marble column 6 inches from where Callie's head had been, sending chips of stone scattering across the floor. Collie gasped, stumbling backward into Damian's solid frame. His arm locked around her waist, steadying her, protecting her. She She could feel the rapid thump of his heart against her back, could smell the faint scent of coffee and laundry detergent on his jacket. But what struck her most was the absolute stillness in him. No panic, no hesitation. Just controlled, deliberate calm. "Stay behind me," he said quietly, his voice low and even. "Don't move unless I tell you to." The gunman stepped closer, weapon now trained directly on Damien. "You got a death wish, hero?" Damien didn't respond. He shifted slightly, angling his body to keep Kali completely shielded. His stance was balanced, weight distributed, ready to move in any direction. The other customers cowered on the floor, faces pressed to cold marble, but Damien stood firm. "I said get down." The gunman shouted, his voice cracking slightly, nerves. Damien heard it immediately. "You don't want to do this," Damien said calmly, his eyes never leaving the masked face. "You fire that weapon again, and this goes from robbery to murder. That changes everything. The charges, the response, your whole life." The second gunman, shorter and stockier, moved toward them from the right. "Tommy, just shoot him and let's go." But Tommy, the tall one, hesitated. Something in Damien's voice, his posture, the way he stood without flinching, made him pause. This wasn't some civilian playing hero. This was someone who'd stood in worse situations and walked away. Behind Damien, Callie's breath came in short, sharp gasps. Her fingers clutched the back of his jacket, nails digging into the worn denim. She'd never been this close to death. Never felt this helpless. And yet, somehow, with this stranger's arm around her and his body between her and the gun, she felt something else entirely. Safe. The third gunman emerged from behind the teller counter. A duffel bag stuffed with cash slung over his shoulder. "We got it. Let's move." Tommy's weapon wavered. "This guy's a problem." "Then make him not a problem." The stocky one hissed. Damien's jaw tightened. His free hand, the one not holding Kali, shifted slightly to his side. The movement was subtle, practiced. Kali felt his muscles coil, felt him preparing for something. She held her breath. Then Tommy made his decision. He lowered the weapon, just slightly, and stepped back. "You're lucky today, hero. But you better thank God we're on a schedule." The three men moved toward the exit, weapons still raised, backing out through the revolving doors. The moment they disappeared into the street, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Someone had triggered the silent alarm. The bank erupted into chaos. People scrambled to their feet, crying, shouting, rushing toward exits. But Damien didn't move. Not yet. He kept his body between Kali and the door until he heard the screech of tires outside. The getaway car speeding off. Only then did his arms slowly release her. Kali stumbled forward, catching herself against the marble column. Her hands were shaking. Her legs felt like water. She turned to look at the man who'd just saved her life. Damien was already stepping back, his face unreadable. He picked up Lily's purple backpack from the floor, slung it over his shoulder, and glanced toward the exit. "Wait," Kali managed, her voice hoarse. You're okay," he interrupted gently. "That's what matters." A bank employee rushed over, face pale. "Sir, the police will want statements from everyone, especially..." "I'll stay," Damien said quietly. "But I need to call my daughter's school first. I was supposed to pick her up early today." Kali stared at him. Daughter, school pickup. This man who'd just stepped into gunfire without hesitation was worried about a school run. The contrast was staggering. Police flooded through the entrance, weapons drawn, voices sharp with commands. Paramedics followed. Someone draped a silver shock blanket around Callie's shoulders, but she barely noticed. Her eyes stayed locked on the man in the faded denim jacket, the man who was calmly giving his statement to an officer, his voice steady, his hands no longer shaking if they ever had been. Who was he? And why did she feel like her entire world had just tilted on its axis? The Sterling Heights Bank had transformed into a circus of flashing lights and urgent voices. Police cruisers lined the street outside, their red and blue lights painting the afternoon in alternating colors. News vans were already setting up, reporters speaking rapidly into cameras, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of breaking news urgency. Inside, officers moved methodically, taking statements, photographing the scene, marking the bullet impact on the marble column with small yellow evidence markers. The bank manager, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a sweat-stained collar, hovered near the vault, wringing his hands and repeating, "This has never happened here. Never. Sterling Heights is a safe neighborhood." Collie sat in a leather chair near the customer service desk, the shock blanket still draped over her shoulders, though she'd stopped shivering. A female officer knelt beside her, asking gentle questions, but Callie's answers came automatically, her mind elsewhere. Her eyes kept drifting across the bank to where Damien stood near the windows, speaking with a detective. He looked so ordinary. Just another customer caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. But Collie knew better. She'd felt the way he moved, the precision, the absolute control. That wasn't luck. That wasn't adrenaline. That was training. Adrenaline. That was training. The detective questioning Damien was a broad-shouldered man with silver hair and a weathered face that suggested decades on the force. Detective Raymond Hayes. Collie watched as he scribbled notes, occasionally glancing up at Damien with an expression that shifted from professional interest to something deeper, respect. "So you were standing by customer service when the suspects entered," Hayes said, his pen hovering over his notepad. "Yes, sir," Damien's voice carried across the quiet bank. "I was waiting to make a withdrawal. Had my daughter's backpack with me. I was planning to pick her up from school after this. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story, and when the first shot was fired, I assessed the situation. 3 suspects, all armed, one giving commands. The other customers went to the ground. That woman, Damien nodded toward Collie, she froze. The primary suspect focused on her. I determined intervention was necessary. Hayes looked up sharply. Determined intervention was necessary. That's specific language, Mr. Pierce. Damien met his gaze steadily. I spent 12 years in the Marine Corps, sir. Force recon. Some things become second nature. The bank went quiet. Even the officers taking statements paused. Force recon. The words hung in the air like a revelation. Collie felt her breath catch. Force recon Marines were elite, the kind of operators who train for situations exactly like this. Suddenly, everything made sense. The way he moved, the calm, the absolute certainty in his actions. Hayes set down his pen. Force recon, he repeated, his tone shifting to something warmer. How long you been out? 4 years, sir. Got out when my daughter was 3. Needed to be present, not deployed. I understand that. Hayes extended his hand. Damien shook it firmly. You did good work today, Marine. That woman would be dead if you'd hesitated. Damien's jaw tightened slightly. Just did what needed doing. That's what they all say. Hayes smiled faintly. But between you and me, there's maybe 5 people in this city who would have moved like that. You're one of them. One of the younger officers approached, holding Damien's driver's license and a small notepad. Sir, we've confirmed his information. Damien Pierce, age 36, address in Havenbrook. No priors, clean record. Honorable discharge from the Marines in 2021. The officer glanced at Damien. Thank you for your service, sir. Damien nodded once, accepting the words without pride or false modesty. Thank you. Across the bank, Collie listened to every word. Damien Pierce, 36. Havenbrook, the working-class neighborhood on the west side. Single father, Marine, Force recon, the pieces assembled in her mind, creating a picture of a man who'd walked away from an elite military career to raise a daughter alone. The paramedics approached her again, insisting on checking her vitals one more time. She let them fuss, taking her pulse, shining lights in her eyes, asking about dizziness or nausea. But her attention never left Damien. He was putting his jacket back on now, preparing to leave. The purple backpack went over his shoulder again. He spoke briefly to Detective Hayes, who handed him a business card. Probably a request to come by the station for a formal statement later. Damien nodded, tucked the card into his pocket, and turned toward the exit. Collie stood abruptly, the shock blanket falling to the floor. "Wait!" He paused, turning back. Their eyes met across the chaotic space. For a moment, the noise faded. It was just the two of them, separated by 20 feet of marble floor and an entire lifetime of different experiences. Collie walked toward him, her heels clicking against the floor. Up close, she could see details she'd missed before: the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the small calluses on his hands, the tired lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and early mornings. He was handsome in an understated way, the kind of face that didn't demand attention, but rewarded it when given. "I didn't get to say thank you," she said, her voice steadier now. "No need," Damien replied quietly. "I'm glad you're okay. You saved my life." The words felt inadequate, too small for the magnitude of what had happened. That man was going to shoot me, maybe, but he didn't. Collie shook her head, frustrated by his deflection. Most people would have stayed down, would have protected themselves. You didn't. Damien's expression didn't change. "I've been trained for situations like this. You haven't made sense for me to move. It's more than training." She searched his face, trying to understand. "You didn't even hesitate. You just..." She stopped, remembering the feeling of his arm around her, the certainty in his voice. "Who are you?" "Just someone who was in the right place at the right time." Force recon isn't just someone. A flicker of something crossed his face. Surprise, maybe, that she'd been listening. That was a long time ago. Different life. "Not that different," she countered. "You still moved like that today." Detective Hayes approached, saving Damien from having to respond. "Ms. Rhodes, we'll need a detailed statement from you as well, if you're feeling up to it." Collie nodded, but her eyes stayed on Damien. "Will you be here?" "I need to pick up my daughter," Damien said. "School lets out in 20 minutes. But Detective Hayes has my information if you need anything." "Your daughter." Collie repeated the words, trying to reconcile the image of this man tucking a 7-year-old into bed with the man who'd stepped into gunfire. "What's her name?" Damien's face softened, the first real emotion she'd seen break through his calm exterior. "Lily, she's 7. Smart as they come and twice as stubborn." Collie smiled despite herself. "She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one." He adjusted the purple backpack on his shoulder. "She's everything." The simplicity of the statement hit Collie harder than she expected. She thought of her own penthouse apartment, empty except for expensive furniture and corporate awards. No one waiting for her. No one she was everything to. "I'd like to thank you properly," she said suddenly. "Maybe I could. You don't owe me anything, Ms. Rhodes." Damien's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm just glad you're safe." He turned to leave, and Collie felt a strange panic rise in her chest. This couldn't be it. This couldn't be the last time she saw him. "Mr. Pierce, please. At least let me. Take care of yourself," he said over his shoulder. And then he was gone, disappearing through the brass revolving doors into the afternoon sunlight. Collie stood frozen, watching him leave. Around her, the organized chaos of the investigation continued. Officers talked, cameras flashed. The bank manager still wrung his hands. But all of it felt distant, muted, She looked down at her hands, still trembling slightly. She'd been 3 feet from death, and the man who'd saved her had just walked away like it was nothing, like she was nothing. But that wasn't true, was it? Because if she was nothing, why had he moved at all? Detective Hayes touched her elbow gently. "Ms. Rhodes? Ready to give your statement?" She nodded, allowing herself to be led to a quiet corner. But even as she recounted every detail of the robbery, every terrifying second, her mind was elsewhere. On a man named Damian Pierce. On a purple backpack and a daughter named Lily. On the way his voice had sounded when he said, "Stay behind me." She was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar consulting firm. She'd built an empire from nothing. She'd negotiated with titans of industry and won, but she had no idea how to navigate what she was feeling right now. And for the first time in her carefully controlled life, Collie Rhodes didn't know what to do next. The executive suite of Rhodes Global Consulting occupied the entire 42nd floor of the Meridian Tower, offering panoramic views of the city skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the corner office, and on clear days, you could see all the way to the harbor. The furniture was modern minimalist, glass desks, leather chairs, abstract art on the walls. Everything precise, everything purposeful, everything expensive. Collie stood at the window now, forehead pressed against the cool glass, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over the streets below. Her navy suit jacket hung on the back of her chair. Her pearl earrings sat on her desk, abandoned. She'd been standing here for 20 minutes, unable to focus on the contract awaiting her signature or the emails flooding her inbox. Her assistant, Monica, had knocked twice already. The board meeting was in 30 minutes. The quarterly reports needed final review. But Collie couldn't make herself care. She kept seeing the barrel of that gun, kept feeling Damian's arm around her waist, kept hearing his voice, "Stay behind me." 3 days had passed since the bank robbery. 3 days since she'd watched Damian Pierce walk away without looking back. The news coverage had been intense. Daring robbery at Sterling Heights Bank. CEO narrowly escapes gunfire. Former Marine intervenes in armed robbery. Her phone had exploded with calls from concerned board members, worried friends, journalists seeking comments. But Damian's name barely appeared in the reports. An unidentified witness intervened, most articles said. A bystander with military training. He'd refused interviews, declined to speak with reporters. Detective Hayes had mentioned it during Callie's follow-up statement at the police station. "Mr. Pierce doesn't want attention," Hayes had said. "Honestly, Ms. Rhodes, that's common with guys like him. They do the job and move on. No glory seeking." But Collie couldn't move on. Seeking. But Collie couldn't move on. She'd tried. She'd thrown herself into work, taken meetings, reviewed proposals, attended a charity gala where she smiled and made small talk and pretended everything was normal. But at night, alone in her penthouse, she lay awake replaying those moments. The chaos. The fear. The absolute certainty that she was going to die. And then, him, Damian, stepping between her and death like it was the most natural thing in the world. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Monica entered, tablet in hand, her expression professionally concerned. "Collie, the board meeting starts in 20 minutes. Do you need anything? Water? Coffee? Should I reschedule?" Collie turned from the window. Monica had been her assistant for 6 years, long enough to read her moods, to know when to push and when to give space. Right now her dark eyes held genuine worry. "I'm fine, Monica." "You haven't been fine since Tuesday." Monica set the tablet down. "You've been distracted, unfocused. That's not like you." The board noticed during yesterday's call. Collie sighed, rubbing her temples. "I almost died, Monica. I think I'm allowed a few days to process that." "Of course you are." Monica's voice softened. "But that's not what's bothering you, is it?" Kali looked at her assistant, debating how much to share. Monica was more than staff. She was a friend, one of the few people Kali trusted completely. "No," she admitted quietly. "It's not the man who saved you." It wasn't a question. Kali nodded. Monica pulled up a chair, settling in. "Tell me." So Kali did. She described the robbery, the terror, Damien's intervention. She described his calm, his precision, the way he'd shielded her without hesitation. And she described the feeling that had lodged itself in her chest since that day, the one she couldn't name or shake. "He just left," Kali finished. "Didn't ask for anything. Didn't want recognition. Just picked up his daughter's backpack and walked out." Monica was quiet for a moment. "And now you can't stop thinking about him." "I don't understand it." Kali stood pacing. "I've met hundreds of impressive people. Brilliant minds. Powerful leaders. But this man, this stranger, he did something no one else has ever done for me. He saved your life. It's more than that." Kali struggled for words. "He saw me in danger and didn't calculate the cost. Didn't weigh the risk. Just moved. Like my life mattered more than his own." Monica tilted her head. "And you're not used to that." The words landed like a punch. Kali stopped pacing. No, she wasn't used to that. She was used to transactions, to negotiations, to relationships built on mutual benefit. Even her friendships carried an element of exchange. But Damien had given without asking. Protected without expecting. "I need to find him," Kali said suddenly. "The police have his information. I can't ask them for it. Privacy laws." Kali grabbed her phone, scrolling through contacts. "But I can go back to the bank. Someone there must know more about him." Monica stood. "Kali, the board meeting. Reschedule it." Kali was already reaching for her jacket. "Tell them I have an urgent matter to attend to." "You're going now?" "Right now." Kali buttoned her jacket, grabbed her keys. Energy coursed through her, the first real sense of purpose she'd felt in days. "I need to thank him properly. I need to understand why he did what he did." Monica smiled slightly. "You need to see him again." Kali paused at the door. "Yes," she admitted. "I do." 20 minutes later, Kali pushed through the brass revolving doors of Sterling Heights Bank. The lobby was quiet, back to normal operations. The bullet hole in the marble column had been repaired, the evidence markers removed. If you didn't know what had happened here, you'd never guess. But Kali knew. She felt it in her bones, the phantom echo of gunfire, the remembered terror. The bank manager, the same thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, recognized her immediately. "Ms. Rhodes, please come in." "Are you well?" "We've been so concerned." "I'm fine, thank you." Kali approached the desk. "I was hoping you could help me with something. The man who intervened during the robbery, Damien Pierce. Do you know him?" The manager blinked. "Mr. Pierce?" "Yes, he's been a customer here for several years. Very reliable, quiet, always pleasant. Do you know where he works? Or how I might contact him?" The manager's expression grew uncomfortable. "Ms. Rhodes, I'm not sure I can share customer information. Please." Kali leaned forward. "That man saved my life. I just want to thank him properly. To make sure he's okay." The manager hesitated, clearly torn between policy and compassion. Finally, he sighed. "I can't give you his address or phone number. But I can tell you he works at Harbor Grounds. It's a coffee shop near the waterfront. He's there most mornings, before his afternoon shift at the community center." Relief flooded through Kali. "Harbor Grounds. Thank you. He's a good man, Ms. Rhodes, very dedicated to his daughter. She comes in sometimes with him, sweetest little girl. Purple everything." Kali smiled despite herself, remembering the purple backpack. "Thank you. You've been very helpful." She left the bank and stood on the sidewalk, pulling out her phone. A quick search showed Harbor Grounds was a small locally owned coffee shop in Havenbrook, the neighborhood the police report had listed as Damien's address. 20 minutes across the city. Working class. Nothing like the polished downtown district where Kali lived and worked. She should go back to the office. The board meeting, the contracts, the endless responsibilities. But her feet were already carrying her toward her car. A sleek silver Mercedes parked in executive parking. Monica's voice echoed in her mind. "You're not used to that." Double quotes. No, she wasn't. And maybe that's exactly why she couldn't let this go. Kali slid behind the wheel, started the engine, and pulled into traffic. Harbor Grounds, Havenbrook, a world away from Meridian Tower and executive suites. But that's where she was going, because 3 days ago, a man had stepped between her and death without asking her name, her title, or what she could offer in return. And Kali Rhodes, CEO, negotiator, builder of empires, had absolutely no idea how to process that. But she was going to figure it out, even if it meant crossing the city to a coffee shop she'd never heard of, in a neighborhood she'd never visited, to find a man who'd already made it clear he wanted nothing from her. Sometimes she was learning. The most important journeys weren't about getting somewhere, they were about understanding why you needed to go in the first place. Harbor Grounds sat on a corner lot in Havenbrook, wedged between a laundromat and a family-owned bookstore. The building was old brick, weathered by decades of salt air from the nearby waterfront. A hand-painted sign hung above the door, slightly crooked, with a steaming coffee cup and the words "Harbor Grounds, where community meets coffee," written in cheerful yellow letters. Kali pulled into a parking spot across the street, killed the engine, and sat for a moment. Her Mercedes looked absurdly out of place here, gleaming silver among pickup trucks and older sedans. She glanced at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her hair was still perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, her suit crisp and expensive. She looked like exactly what she was, someone from a different world. For a brief moment, she considered turning around, going back to the office where she belonged, where everything made sense. But then she remembered the feeling of Damien's arm around her waist, the certainty in his voice, the way he'd stood between her and death. Without flinching, she got out of the car. The bell above the door chimed as she entered. The interior was warm and lived in, nothing like the sleek coffee chains downtown. Mismatched furniture filled the space, vintage armchairs, wooden tables scarred with use, a long community table made from reclaimed barn wood. Local art covered the walls, price tags dangling from frames. The smell of fresh ground coffee and cinnamon rolls wrapped around her like a hug. A handful of customers occupied the space. An elderly man reading a newspaper by the window. 2 women chatting over laptops at a corner table. A teenager with headphones, sketching in a notebook. And behind the counter, wearing a green apron and a patient smile, was Damien. Kali's breath caught. He was pulling a shot of espresso, his movements efficient and practiced. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd showered recently, and he'd shaved since she last saw him. He wore jeans and a plain gray thermal shirt under the apron. He looked so different from the man who'd shielded her in the bank, more relaxed, more at ease. This was his element. He hadn't seen her yet. Kali stood by the door, suddenly unsure. What was she going to say? "Hi, remember me, the woman you saved? I tracked you down because I can't stop thinking about you." It sounded obsessive even in her own mind, but then Damien looked up. Their eyes met across the coffee shop. Recognition flickered in his expression, followed by surprise. He set down the espresso cup carefully, said something to the young woman working the register beside him, and came around the counter. "Ms. Rhodes," he said, approaching her. His voice held no annoyance, just genuine surprise. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I asked around," Kali admitted. "The bank manager told me you worked here. I hope that's not too intrusive." Damien studied her for a moment, his hazel eyes unreadable. "You drove all the way to Havenbrook to find me?" "I did. Why?" The directness of the question caught her off guard. No small talk, no polite deflection. Just a simple, honest question that deserved an honest answer. Simple, honest question that deserved an honest answer. "Because you left before I could properly thank you," Colley said. "And because I haven't been able to stop thinking about what happened. About what you did." Damien's expression softened slightly. "You already thanked me. At the bank, that wasn't enough." She gestured around them. "Can we talk? Do you have a minute?" He glanced back at the counter where his co-worker, a young woman with bright pink hair and multiple piercings, gave him an encouraging thumbs up. "My break's in 10 minutes. Can you wait?" "Of course." He nodded toward an empty table near the window. "Have a seat. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Tea?" "Coffee would be great." "Black, please." A small smile crossed his face. "Straight shooter." "I respect that." He returned to the counter, and Colley settled into one of the vintage armchairs. It was surprisingly comfortable, worn in by years of use. She watched Damien work, noting the easy rapport he had with customers. He knew their names, their usual orders. An older woman came in, and he had her latte ready before she reached the counter. "Extra foam, Mrs. Patterson. Just how you like it." This was a man embedded in his community. People here knew him, trusted him. He wasn't just a coffee shop employee. He was part of the fabric of this neighborhood. 10 minutes later, Damien brought over 2 cups of coffee and settled into the chair across from her. Up close, in better light, Colley noticed more details. The small scar above his eyebrow was shaped like a crescent. His hands, wrapped around the coffee cup, bore calluses and a few small burns, probably from years of working with hot beverages and kitchen equipment. "So," he said, taking a sip of his coffee, "you tracked me down." "I'm listening." Colley wrapped her hands around her own cup, gathering her thoughts. "I run a multi-million-dollar company. I negotiate with some of the most powerful people in the world. I've closed deals that changed industries. And in all that time, no one has ever done for me what you did on Tuesday." Damien set his cup down. "I did what anyone should have done, but they didn't." She leaned forward. "There were 15 people in that bank. Security guard included. You were the only one who moved. I had training they didn't." "It's more than training, Damien." She used his first name deliberately, wanting to bridge the formality between them. "You made a choice. A split-second decision to put yourself in danger for a complete stranger. That's not training. That's character." He was quiet for a moment, his eyes on his coffee. When he spoke, his voice was low. "I've seen what happens when no one moves. When everyone waits for someone else to act. I saw it overseas, saw the cost of hesitation. So when I came home, I made myself a promise. If I ever saw someone in danger, if I could do something about it, I would. No hesitation. No calculation." He looked up at her. "You were in danger. I could do something about it. So I did." The simplicity of his explanation moved her more than any grand gesture could have. This wasn't about heroism or glory. It was about principle, about living according to a code that demanded action over comfort. "Your daughter," Colley said. "Lily, she must be proud of you." Damien's face transformed when she mentioned his daughter. The guardedness fell away, replaced by pure warmth. "She doesn't really understand what happened. I told her there was an incident at the bank, that I helped someone. She asked if I got a medal." He smiled. "She's very into medals right now. Got one at school for perfect attendance." Colley laughed softly. "Purple backpack, right? The bank manager mentioned she likes purple. Everything purple. Clothes, books, her bedroom. Her favorite color this year." His expression grew more serious. "She's why I left the Marines." Being deployed 6, 8 months at a time, missing birthdays and school plays, it wasn't fair to her. She needed a father who was present, not a ghost who sent emails from halfway around the world. That must have been a difficult decision. Hardest one I ever made. He took another sip of coffee. I loved serving. Believed in the mission. But I loved her more. Still do. She's my whole world. Kali felt something twist in her chest. She thought of her own parents, wealthy and distant, who'd sent her to boarding schools and summer camps, who measured their love in trust funds and inheritance plans. She'd built her empire partly to prove she didn't need their approval. But sitting here listening to Damien talk about sacrifice and presence, she wondered what she'd missed. I'd like to do something for you, she said. To thank you properly. Maybe I could make a donation to a charity you care about. Or help with. I don't need anything, Ms. Rhodes. Kali. Please call me Kali, he nodded. Kali. I appreciate the offer, but I really don't need anything. I have a roof over my head, food on the table, and a daughter who thinks I hung the moon. That's enough. But surely there's something. Why does this matter so much to you? The question wasn't accusatory, just curious. Most people would send a thank you card and move on. But you drove across the city, tracked me down at my job. Why? Kali set her coffee cup down, realizing she needed to be as honest with him as he'd been with her. Because in the 20 years I've been building my company, climbing corporate ladders, making deals and breaking barriers, I've been surrounded by people who wanted something from me. My money, my influence, my connections. Even my friends, most of them are tied to business in some way. And then you stepped between me and a bullet, and you wanted nothing. She met his eyes. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How completely disorienting it is to meet someone who sees you in danger and just acts, without thinking about what they might gain. Damien was quiet, processing her words. Finally he said, You live in a transactional world. Yes. That sounds lonely. The observation hit her harder than she expected. It is, she admitted quietly. It really is. They sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the coffee shop filling the space between them. The espresso machine hissing, the low murmur of conversation, the bell above the door chiming as new customers entered. I finish here at 2, Damien said suddenly. Then I pick up Lily from school and take her to the park. We do that every Wednesday. It's our tradition. He hesitated. If you want, you could come with us. Not as payment or obligation, just as meeting people who have no agenda beyond enjoying this sunny afternoon. Kali blinked, surprised by the invitation. You'd want me to meet your daughter? She's been asking about the bank incident. Wants to know if the lady I helped is okay. A small smile played at his lips. She's very concerned about strangers. Wants to make sure everyone's safe and happy. She sounds wonderful, she is. He stood, picking up their empty cups. So what do you say? Want to spend an afternoon in a world that's probably very different from yours? Kali stood as well. She thought of her calendar, packed with meetings and calls. She thought of Monica, probably fielding questions about where she'd disappeared to. She thought of the board, waiting for reports and decisions. And then she thought of the way Damien's face lit up when he talked about his daughter. The way he'd made a promise to himself about never hesitating when someone needed help. The way he lived in a small apartment and worked 2 jobs and considered himself rich because he had love. Yes, she said. I'd like that very much. Damien smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Good. Meet me at Harborview Elementary at 3. It's the brick building on Maple Street. Can't miss it. There's a giant anchor sculpture out front. I'll be there. As Kali walked back to her Mercedes, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Anticipation. Not for a business deal or a strategic win, but for an afternoon in a park with a man and his daughter. Doing something simple and real, She slid behind the wheel and checked her phone. 17 missed calls. 23 emails. Monica had sent 3 increasingly worried texts. Kali typed a response, taking the rest of the day off. Handle what you can, reschedule the rest. I'll explain tomorrow. Then she put the phone in her purse, started the engine, and smiled. For the first time in her carefully controlled life, she was about to do something completely unplanned, and she couldn't wait. Harborview. Elementary was exactly as Damien described. A 3-story brick building with ivy climbing the walls and a massive anchor sculpture planted in the front lawn. Painted in cheerful primary colors by what looked like hundreds of small handprints. The playground stretched behind the building, and Kali could hear the distant shouts of youngsters at recess. She'd gone home to change after leaving harbor grounds, trading her suit for dark jeans, a cream-colored sweater, and ankle boots. She felt strange in casual clothes on a Wednesday afternoon, like she was playing hooky from her own life. But as she sat in her car watching parents and caregivers gather near the school entrance, she didn't regret it. At exactly 3 o'clock, the doors burst open and a flood of kids poured out, backpacks bouncing. Voices raised in that particular pitch of freedom that came with the end of a school day. Kali scanned the crowd, looking for purple, and found it almost immediately. Lily Pierce was small for 7, with long brown hair pulled into a ponytail and a purple backpack nearly as big as she was. She wore purple sneakers, purple leggings under a denim skirt, and a white t-shirt with a purple unicorn on it. But what struck Kali most was her smile, bright and unguarded, as she spotted her father standing near the anchor sculpture. "Daddy!" She ran toward Damien, who crouched down to catch her in a hug. "Hey, Ladybug. How was school?" "Hey, Ladybug. How was school? We learned about the water cycle, and I got a 100 on my spelling test, and Aiden said I couldn't do the monkey bars all the way across, but I did it twice, just to prove him wrong." The words tumbled out rapid fire, full of 7-year-old enthusiasm. Damien laughed, smoothing a stray hair from her face. "That's my girl. Never back down from a challenge. Did you bring snacks? Apple slices and peanut butter in your backpack. Just like always. You're the best daddy ever." Lily hugged him again, and Kali felt her throat tighten watching the easy affection between them. Then Lily noticed her. "Daddy, who's that lady by the pretty car?" Damien stood, taking Lily's hand. "That's my friend Kali. Remember I told you about the lady from the bank? That's her." Lily's eyes went wide. "The one you helped? Is she okay? Why don't you ask her yourself?" Damien led Lily toward Kali, who'd stepped out of her Mercedes. Up close, Lily had her father's hazel eyes and a spattering of freckles across her nose. She looked up at Kali with open curiosity, no shyness whatsoever. "Are you okay? Daddy said there were bad people at the bank." Kali crouched down to Lily's level. "I'm perfectly okay, thanks to your dad. He was very brave. He's always brave." Lily said it matter-of-factly, like she was stating the weather. "One time there was a spider in my room, and he caught it even though it was really big and scary." "That does sound brave," Kali agreed, fighting a smile. "Do you like parks?" Lily asked suddenly. "We go to Harborview Park every Wednesday. It has the best swings, and sometimes there are ducks." "I love parks," Kali said, surprising herself with how true it felt. When was the last time she'd been to a park? Years, probably. Maybe a decade. "Then you should come with us." Lily looked up at her father. "She can come, right, Daddy?" "I already invited her, Ladybug. That's why she's here." "Oh, good." Lily grabbed Kali's hand without hesitation, her small fingers warm and trusting. "Come on, we have to hurry or someone else will get the good swings." And just like that, Kali found herself being tugged down the sidewalk by a 7-year-old in purple sneakers. Damien walking beside them with an amused expression. Harborview Park was a 10-minute walk from the school. A sprawling green space with towering oak trees, winding paths, and a playground that looked recently updated. The swings Lily had mentioned were indeed occupied, but she didn't seem disappointed. Instead, she dragged Collie toward the climbing structure, chattering the entire way about her day, her friends, her favorite subjects in school. Damien settled onto a bench nearby, watching them with a relaxed posture Collie hadn't seen before. He looked younger like this, without the weight of vigilance he'd carried in the bank and the coffee shop. This was his sacred time, she realized. The hours when he got to just be dad. "Can you climb to the top?" Lily asked, already scaling the structure with impressive agility. "I'm not sure," Collie admitted, eyeing the colorful bars and platforms. "It's been a very long time since I've climbed anything." "It's easy. Just follow me." So Collie climbed, feeling ridiculous and exhilarated in equal measure. Her sweater caught on a bolt. Her boots weren't ideal for this activity. But Lily's encouraging shouts, "You can do it. Just one more step," kept her going until they both reached the top platform. The view from up there was hardly spectacular, maybe 10 feet off the ground, but Lily beamed like they'd conquered Everest. "See? I told you it was easy." "You're an excellent guide," Collie said, catching her breath. They sat on the platform, legs dangling, and Lily pulled her snack from her backpack. "Want some?" "Daddy always packs extra." Collie accepted an apple slice, touched by the casual generosity. They ate in companionable silence for a moment, watching other kids play, listening to the sounds of the park. "Do you have a daddy?" Lily asked suddenly. The question caught Collie off guard. "I do, but I don't see him very much. He lives far away." "That's sad. Daddies are important." Lily took another bite of apple. "I don't have a mommy, though. She went to heaven when I was really little." Callie's heart clenched. "I'm sorry, Lily." "It's okay. I don't really remember her, but Daddy says she was really nice and that she loved me a lot." Lily swung her legs thoughtfully. "Daddy shows me pictures sometimes. She had pretty hair. I'm sure she did. Do you have kids?" "No, I don't. Why not?" Collie smiled at the directness. "I've been very busy with work. Building a company takes a lot of time." Lily considered this. "What's more important, your company or having kids?" The question, so innocent and yet so profound, made Collie pause. What was more important? She'd spent 2 decades telling herself that her company, her success, her independence, those were what mattered. But sitting on a playground platform with a 7-year-old who'd just shared her apple slices, she wasn't sure anymore. "I think," Collie said carefully, "that different things are important to different people. And sometimes what's important changes as we grow." Lily nodded sagely. "That makes sense. I used to think pink was the most important color, but now it's purple." Collie laughed, the tension breaking. "Exactly like that." They climbed down eventually, and Lily insisted on showing Collie every part of the playground. The monkey bars where she'd proven Aiden wrong. The merry-go-round that was okay but not great. The spot by the pond where the ducks usually hung out, but weren't there today. Damien joined them for the duck search, and the 3 of them walked the path around the small pond. Lily ran ahead, investigating every rustle in the bushes, convinced the ducks were hiding. "She likes you," Damien said quietly as they walked. "She's wonderful," Collie replied. "So open, so confident. You've done an amazing job with her. She makes it easy." He watched Lily crouch by the water's edge, peering into the reeds. "When her mom died, I was terrified. I just left the Marines, was trying to figure out civilian life, and suddenly I was a single parent to a 3-year-old. I had no idea what I was doing. You figured it out. Had to." He smiled, slightly. "She needed me to. So I learned to braid hair and make Pinterest-worthy birthday cakes, and tell bedtime stories. Picked up jobs that let me be present, even if they don't pay as much as other options. Because she deserves a parent who shows up. They walked in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Collie said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why did you invite me today? You could have just let me say thank you at the coffee shop and moved on." Damien thought about it. "Because you drove all the way to Havenbrook to find me. Because you admitted you're lonely. And because I recognize that look in your eyes." "What look?" "Like you're searching for something real." He met her gaze. "I've been there. After I got out, when I was trying to figure out who I was outside of the uniform, I felt lost. Everything felt transactional, like you said. And then Lily smiled at me one morning, just this pure, genuine smile because I'd made her favorite pancakes. And I realized that's what real looks like. Simple, honest, no agenda. I don't think I've had simple or honest in a very long time." Collie admitted, "Then maybe it's time to try it." Lily came running back, breathless. "No ducks today, but I found a really cool rock. Look, it's shaped like a heart." She held up a smooth gray stone that did, indeed, resemble a heart. Damien examined it seriously. "That's a great find, Ladybug. Museum quality. Can Collie come to dinner with us?" Lily asked, still holding the rock. "We're having spaghetti. Daddy makes the best spaghetti." Damien looked at Collie, eyebrows raised. "No pressure. But if you're free, you're welcome. Fair warning though, our apartment is small, and Lily will probably make you watch her favorite movie." "Which is?" Collie asked. "Mona," Lily announced. "I've seen it 43 times. Collie laughed. "I've never seen it." Lily gasped, genuinely shocked. "Never? Not even once?" "Not even once." "Then you have to come. You can't live your whole life without seeing Mona." Lily grabbed her hand again. "Please say yes, please, please, please." Collie looked at Damien, who shrugged with a smile. "Like I said, no pressure." But there was no pressure, not really. Because standing in this park, holding hands with an enthusiastic 7-year-old, talking with a man who'd literally taken a bullet for her, Collie couldn't think of anywhere else she'd rather be. "I'd love to come to dinner," she said. Lily cheered, jumping up and down. "This is the best Wednesday ever." As they walked back toward the school where their cars were parked, Lily between them holding both their hands, Collie felt something shift inside her. The constant hum of anxiety she lived with, the need to control and plan and strategize, it quieted. For the first time in years, she wasn't CEO Collie Rhodes. She wasn't negotiating or networking or building her empire. She was just Collie. Walking through a park on a Wednesday afternoon. About to have spaghetti dinner and watch an animated movie she'd never seen. And it felt like coming home to a place she'd never been. Damien's apartment was on the 3rd floor of a modest building in Havenbrook. The kind of place where neighbors knew each other's names and kids played in the shared courtyard. The hallway smelled faintly of someone's dinner cooking. And Collie could hear music playing from one of the units. Something classical and soothing. "It's not much," Damien said, unlocking the door, "but it's home." Lily pushed past him, already kicking off her purple sneakers. Come in, come in. I'll show you my room. Show you my room." Collie stepped inside and stopped, taking it all in. The apartment was small, maybe 800 square feet, with an open kitchen and living area. The furniture was mismatched but comfortable looking, a worn couch with colorful throw pillows, a coffee table covered in Lily's drawings, bookshelves made from cinder blocks and planks. But what struck Collie most was how lived in it felt. Photos covered the walls, most of them of Lily at various ages. Her artwork hung proudly on the refrigerator. A plant thrived in the corner, and sunlight streamed through gauzy curtains. It was nothing like Callie's penthouse with its designer furniture and stark minimalism. This place had warmth, personality, life. "Your room can wait, Ladybug," Damien said, hanging his jacket on a hook by the door. Let me get dinner started first. Collie, make yourself comfortable. Can I get you something to drink? Water? Juice? Fair warning, we don't have wine or anything fancy. Water's perfect, Collie said, settling onto the couch. Lily immediately climbed up beside her, the heart-shaped rock still clutched in her hand. This is where we watch movies. Daddy sits there, she pointed to the armchair, and I sit in the middle so I can see everything, but you can sit next to me tonight. I'd be honored, Collie said seriously. From the kitchen, Damien moved. With efficient grace, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator and cabinets. He'd changed into a faded Marines t-shirt and put an apron over it, this one saying "Dad Jokes Loading" with a progress bar. Collie watched him work, noting the comfortable rhythm of someone who'd done this countless times. Lily chattered away. Beside her, showing her various treasures, a collection of smooth stones. This one's from the beach. This one's from the mountain. This one's from the parking lot, but it's still special. A sketchbook filled with drawings of unicorns and rainbows. A purple stuffed elephant named Mr. Fuzzy. That's from my mommy, Lily said, hugging the elephant. Daddy says she gave it to me when I was born. It's my most special thing ever. Collie touched the worn fur gently. It's lovely. Your mommy had good taste. Daddy says I look like her. Want to see? Before Collie could respond, Lily hopped off the couch and ran to a shelf, pulling down a framed photograph. She brought it back carefully, handling it like the precious thing it was. The woman in the photo was beautiful. Dark hair, bright smile, holding a tiny baby. Damien stood beside her, younger, in military uniform, his arm around her shoulders. They looked happy, whole, unaware of what was coming. She was very beautiful, Collie said softly. And yes, you do look like her, especially your smile. Lily beamed. Really? Really? From the kitchen, Damien glanced over, his expression unreadable as he saw what they were looking at. But he didn't interrupt, just returned his attention to the simmering pot on the stove. 30 minutes later, they sat around a small table that Damien had extended to fit 3. The spaghetti was simple but delicious, with a homemade sauce that Damien explained was his grandmother's recipe. Lily insisted on showing Collie the proper way to twirl the pasta on her fork, which involved more enthusiasm than technique. So Collie, Damien said, serving himself a second helping, Lily and I usually play a dinner game. Everyone shares the best part of their day and the most challenging part. Want to play? I'll start. Lily raised her hand like she was in class. Best part was proving Aiden wrong about the monkey bars and meeting Collie at the park. Challenging part was math because I don't understand carrying numbers yet. We'll practice tonight, Damien promised. He turned to Collie. Your turn. Collie set down her fork, thinking. Best part was definitely the park and this dinner. Challenging part was leaving my office in the middle of the day. I don't usually do that. Why not? Lily asked. Because I'm usually very busy with work. But don't you get tired of working all the time? The innocent question hit harder than it should have. Yes, Collie admitted. I do get tired. Then you should do more fun stuff, Lily said matter-of-factly. Like parks and spaghetti. Damien hid a smile behind his napkin. Hard to argue with that logic. After dinner, Lily insisted on showing Collie her room. It was exactly what you'd expect from a 7-year-old obsessed with purple. Purple walls, purple bedspread, purple curtains. But there were also bookshelves, overflowing with stories, a small desk where she did homework, and more drawings taped to every available surface. Daddy painted my room himself, Lily said proudly. It took 3 coats because purple is hard to get right. Collie imagined Damien spending his evenings after work painting these walls, making sure his daughter had exactly the room she wanted. He did a great job. He does everything great, Lily said with absolute confidence. Except braids. He's still learning those. They reconvened in the living room, where Damien had already queued up Mona on the streaming service. Lily settled into her spot on the couch with Mr. Fuzzy, and Collie took the seat beside her. Damien sat in his armchair, a bowl of popcorn balanced on his lap. "Fair warning," he said. "She knows all the songs, and I mean all of them." He wasn't kidding. Within the first 10 minutes, Lily was singing along word perfect. But what surprised Collie was how invested she became in the story herself. She hadn't watched an animated movie in years, had forgotten the pure joy of it. And watching it with Lily, seeing her react to every twist and turn despite having seen it 43 times, added another layer of delight. Halfway through, Lily migrated from her spot to Callie's lap, settling in like it was the most natural thing in the world. Collie froze for a moment, unsure, but then wrapped her arms around the small body and found it felt right. Perfect, even. She glanced at Damien and found him watching them, his expression soft. He caught her eye and smiled, and something passed between them. Understanding. Connection. The beginning of something neither of them had words for yet. By the time the movie ended, Lily was fighting sleep, her eyelids drooping. Damien scooped her up gently. "Bedtime, ladybug." "But Collie just got here," Lily mumbled, already half asleep. "Collie will come back another time," Damien said, carrying her toward her purple room. "Promise?" Lily asked, looking at Collie over her father's shoulder. "I promise," Collie said, surprised by how much she meant it. Damien disappeared into Lily's room, and Collie stood, stretching. She walked to the window, looking out over the courtyard where lights were coming on in apartments, families settling in for the night. This neighborhood, this building, this life, it was so different from hers. But it wasn't less. If anything, it was more. More real, more connected, more alive. Damien emerged 15 minutes later, closing Lily's door quietly. "She wanted you to have this," he said, holding out the heart-shaped rock. "Said it's for good luck." Collie took the rock, her throat tight. "She's incredible, Damien. She is." He sat on the couch, gesturing for Collie to join him. "Thank you for today. For coming to the park, for dinner, for being patient with her questions and endless energy." "I should be thanking you," Collie said, settling beside him. "I can't remember the last time I spent an afternoon like this. No agenda, no strategy, just existing in the moment." It was perfect. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Damien said, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "What do you do at that company of yours? You've never actually said." Collie smiled. "Global consulting. We help companies restructure, optimize operations, increase profitability. I started it 12 years ago with nothing but a business plan and stubborn determination. Now we have offices in 6 cities and employ over 300 people." Damien whistled low. "That's impressive." "It's exhausting," she admitted. "I love it, or I thought I did. But lately I don't know. Since the bank, since meeting you and Lily, I've been questioning everything. What am I building this empire for? Who am I doing this for? And at the end of the day, what do I actually have? What do you want to have?" The question hung between them, heavy with possibility. Collie looked around the small apartment, at the photos on the walls, and the drawings on the fridge, and the purple door behind which a little girl slept clutching a stuffed elephant. "This," she said quietly. "I want this, connection, purpose, someone waiting for me to come home. I want to matter to someone beyond what I can provide or negotiate or build." Damien reached over and took her hand. His palm was warm, calloused, strong. "You matter, Collie. You matter to Lily already. She doesn't care about your company or your success. She cares that you climbed to the top of the playground with her and watched her favorite movie. That's what matters to her. And to you?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "Do I matter to you?" He squeezed her hand gently. "You matter. From the moment you froze in that bank, something in me recognized something in you. I can't explain it better than that. But yes, you matter." They sat like that, hands linked, the city sounds drifting through the window. Eventually, Kali knew she needed to leave, needed to get home and face the 17 meetings she'd missed and the calls she'd ignored. But for now, for this perfect moment, she let herself stay in the small apartment in Havenbrook, sitting beside a man who'd saved her life and holding a heart-shaped rock given by a 7-year-old. Kali Rhodes finally understood what she'd been missing. Not success, not power, not wealth, just this. Someone to share spaghetti with, someone to watch movies beside, someone to matter to. And for the first time in 20 years, she wanted something more than her next deal. She wanted to stay. 3 weeks after that first dinner, Kali found herself spending more time in Havenbrook than in her own penthouse. She'd had dinner with Damien and Lily 6 more times, attended Lily's school assembly where she performed in the spelling bee, and even helped Damien with inventory at Harbor Grounds one Saturday morning. Her calendar had shifted. Board meetings moved to accommodate Wednesday park visits. Conference calls happened from Damien's couch while Lily did homework at the table. Monica had noticed. "You're different," she'd said during a rare moment when Kali was actually in the office. Happier. More present. Kali couldn't deny it. She was different. The constant tension she'd carried for years had loosened. She laughed more. Stressed less. Found herself thinking about purple rocks and animated movies instead of quarterly projections. But on a cold Thursday evening, both worlds collided in the worst possible way. Kali had invited Damien and Lily to a company event. A fundraiser gala for a non-profit Rhodes Global Consulting sponsored. She downplayed it as casual, but the moment Damien walked into the ballroom of the Grandshire Hotel with Lily's hand in his, she realized her mistake. He wore the only suit he owned, slightly outdated but clean and pressed. Lily wore her nicest dress, purple naturally, with white tights and patent leather shoes. They looked beautiful, but they also looked exactly like what they were, people from a different world, trying to fit into hers. "This is fancy," Lily whispered, eyes wide as she took in the crystal chandeliers and elaborate floral arrangements. "It's too much," Damien muttered, his jaw tight. "Kali, we should go. We don't belong here." "You belong wherever I am," Kali said firmly, taking his arm. "Come on, I want you to meet some people." But the evening went downhill fast. Kali's colleagues were polite but distant, their eyes assessing Damien's suit and Lily's eager questions with barely concealed judgment. Worse was Gerald Hoffman, the CFO, who'd had too much champagne and no filter. "So this is the hero from the bank," Gerald said, his voice loud enough to carry. "The coffee shop worker who got lucky." Damien's expression remained neutral, but Kali felt him tense beside her. "I'm a barista, yes sir. Also work at Havenbrook Community Center in the afternoons." "Community Center?" Gerald laughed. "How noble. And you brought your daughter to a corporate gala." "Bold choice." Lily pressed closer to her father, sensing the hostility even if she didn't understand it. Kali's temper flared. "Gerald, that's enough. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, Kali. You've been distracted for weeks. Missing meetings. Delaying decisions. All for what? A fling with someone who doesn't understand your world? My personal life is none of your concern. It is when it affects the company." Gerald gestured around the room. "Look at this. You built this empire. Don't throw it away for some misguided sense of gratitude." Damien's hand found Kali's. "We should go." "No," Kali said. But Damien was already guiding Lily toward the exit. She caught up with them in the marble lobby. "Damien, wait. Please, he's drunk and he's an idiot." Damien turned to face her, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw anger in his eyes. "He's right though, isn't he? I don't belong in your world. Look at me, Kali. I serve coffee for a living. I live in a 300 square foot apartment. I can't even afford to take my daughter to places like this unless someone invites us. None of that matters to me. But it matters to them. And eventually, it'll matter to you too." His voice cracked slightly. "You'll wake up one day and realize you're embarrassed by the guy who couldn't protect you without getting thanked. Who doesn't know which fork to use at fancy dinners? Who can't give you the life you're used to?" "That's not true," Kali said desperately. "I don't want that life anymore. I want the one we've been building. The park and spaghetti dinners and Mona sing-alongs. Daddy, can we go home?" Lily's small voice interrupted. "I don't like it here." Damien picked her up, holding her close. "Yeah, Ladybug. We're going. Please don't leave like this," Kali pleaded, but Damien was already walking toward the door, Lily's face buried in his shoulder. He paused at the threshold, looking back. "I care about you, Kali. More than I should. But I won't let Lily grow up watching her father try to be something he's not. And I won't watch you sacrifice everything you built for a relationship that might not survive the real world." Then they were gone, disappearing into the night, leaving Kali standing alone in the marble lobby with the sound of the gala continuing behind her. She stood there for a long moment, torn between two lives. Behind her, success and security and the empire she'd spent 20 years building. Ahead, uncertainty and judgment, and a man who'd rather walk away than let her compromise. The choice should have been obvious. She'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to throw it away. But when she thought about returning to that ballroom, to Gerald and people like him, to a life measured in profit margins and quarterly reports, she felt nothing. And when she thought about Damien's apartment, about Lily's laughter and purple rocks, and the way he looked at her like she mattered beyond what she could provide, she felt everything. Kali pulled out her phone and called Monica. "Clear my schedule for tomorrow. All of it. I don't care what has to be moved. Just do it." "Kali, what's wrong?" "I'm choosing," she said quietly. "Finally choosing what matters." She hung up, pushed through the glass doors, and ran into the cold night air. Hoping she wasn't too late, Kali found them at the small playground near Damien's apartment. The one that was too old to be popular, but close enough for late-night visits when sleep wouldn't come. Damien sat on a bench while Lily swung gently, her purple dress ghostly in the streetlight's glow. "You should be at your gala," Damien said without looking at her. "I should be here," Kali replied, sitting beside him. "I'm sorry about Gerald. I'm sorry I put you in that position. It's not about him." Damien watched Lily swing. "It's about reality. You live in penthouses and close million-dollar deals. I make lattes and live paycheck to paycheck. Eventually, that gap becomes a canyon, or we build a bridge." Kali turned to face him. "Damien, 3 weeks ago I was standing in a bank thinking I was going to die. And you stepped between me and that bullet without knowing my name, my title, or what I could give you in return. That moment taught me something. Everything I'd built meant nothing if I had no one to share it with. You can find someone from your world to share it with. I don't want someone from my world." Her voice was fierce now. "I want you. I want Wednesday park visits and spaghetti dinners. I want Lily teaching me the words to Disney songs. I want to matter to someone for who I am, not what I've accomplished." Damien finally looked at her. "You really mean that? I've never met anything more." She took his hand. "And next week, I'm going to prove it." 7 days later, Rhodes Global Consulting held its quarterly board meeting. The conference room on the 42nd floor was packed with executives, board members, and senior partners. The agenda was standard: financial reports, strategic initiatives, expansion plans. But when Kali stood to give her closing remarks, she deviated from the script. "Before we adjourn, I have an announcement." She pulled up a new slide, one that wasn't in the distributed materials. "Effective immediately, I'm restructuring my role. I'll remain CEO, but I'm implementing a co-leadership model and reducing my hours by 40%. Stunned silence filled the room. Gerald Hoffman stood. You can't be serious. Completely serious. I've spent 12 years building this company, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished. But I've also sacrificed everything personal for professional success. That ends now. She looked around the room. I'm establishing the Rhodes Foundation, a nonprofit that will work with community centers, veteran services, and youth programs. 20% of company profits will fund it annually. This is suicide, Gerald sputtered. The board will never approve. The board will approve because I still hold controlling interest, Kali said calmly. But more importantly, they'll approve because it's the right thing to do. We're successful enough to give back. And I'm done measuring my worth solely in profit margins. She clicked to the next slide, showing a photo of Havenbrook Community Center, the place where Damien worked afternoons teaching kids basic carpentry and life skills. This is where we start. This center serves 300 families, but operates on a shoestring budget. The Rhodes Foundation's first initiative will be full funding and expansion. We're going to prove that corporate success and community impact aren't mutually exclusive. The room erupted in whispered conversations. Some board members nodded approvingly. Others looked skeptical. But Kali didn't care. She'd made her choice. After the meeting, Monica found her in her office. That was either brilliant or career suicide. I haven't decided which. Kali smiled, packing up her briefcase. Maybe both. But it feels right. This is about him, isn't it? The Marine. It's about remembering who I wanted to be before I got so focused on who I thought I needed to become. Kali grabbed her coat. I have somewhere to be. Her coat. I have somewhere to be. She drove to Havenbrook Community Center, a converted warehouse with peeling paint and a hand-painted sign. Inside, Damien was teaching a group of teenagers how to properly sand wood, his patience evident as he corrected grips and demonstrated techniques. Lily sat in the corner doing homework, occasionally looking up to watch her father work. Damien noticed Kali and froze. She walked over, very aware of the curious eyes following her. I need to tell you something, she said. And I want Lily to hear it too. Lily abandoned her homework and ran over. Kali, you came. I did. She crouched down to Lily's level first. Remember how you asked me what was more important, my company or having people I love? Lily nodded seriously. You were right. The people matter more. So I made some changes today. Big ones. And I wanted you both to know that this community center, the place where your dad works, it's going to get all the funding it needs. New equipment, more programs, everything. Lily's eyes went wide. Really? Really? Kali stood, meeting Damien's stunned expression. I'm not asking you to fit into my world anymore. I'm choosing to build a new one. With you. If you'll have me. Damien stared at her, processing. Then slowly, a smile spread across his face. You restructured your entire company. 40% reduction in hours, established a foundation, committed to community investment. Gerald Hoffman nearly had a stroke. Good, Damien said, and pulled her into his arms. The teenagers whooped and cheered. Lily jumped up and down, clapping. And for the first time since the bank robbery, everything felt right. 6 months later, Kali's life looked nothing like it had before. She still ran Rhodes Global Consulting, but with a co-CEO handling day-to-day operations. She worked 3 days a week from the office, 2 days remote. The company had thrived under the new model, and the Rhodes Foundation had already transformed 3 community centers across the city. But the real transformation was personal. She'd sold her penthouse and bought a house in Havenbrook. Nothing extravagant, just a 3-bedroom with a yard where Lily could play. Damien and Lily still lived in their apartment, but they spent most evenings at Kelly's house. The transition felt natural, unhurried. They were building something real, and real things took time. On a warm Saturday morning, Collie woke to the smell of coffee and pancakes. She padded downstairs in pajamas to find Damien at the stove and Lily setting the table, her purple apron matching her father's. "Morning," Damien said, kissing her cheek. "Sleep okay?" "Perfectly." She poured herself coffee and sat at the table, watching them work together with practiced ease. This, she thought. This is what I was missing. After breakfast, Lily ran outside to play in the sprinkler Damien had set up. Through the kitchen window, they watched her dance in the water, her laughter carrying through the open windows. "I have something for you," Damien said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small box. Callie's heart jumped. "Damien, it's not what you think. Not yet anyway." He opened it to reveal a key. "Lily and I talked. We'd like to move in, officially. Make this house a home for all three of us." Tears pricked Callie's eyes. "Yes, absolutely yes. There's a condition though." His expression grew serious. "I need you to be sure. Really sure. Because Lily's already attached to you. If this doesn't work, if you wake up one day and realize this life isn't enough, it'll break her heart. It'll break mine too, but Lily comes first. Always." Collie took his face in her hands. "I've never been more sure of anything. I love you. I love Lily. I love this life we're building. My penthouse was just a box with expensive furniture. This is home." He kissed her then, deep and sure, and when they pulled apart, Lily was standing in the doorway, dripping wet and grinning. "Does this mean Daddy and I get to live here forever?" "Forever," Collie confirmed. Lily squealed and ran to hug them both, getting them soaked in the process. Nobody cared. That afternoon, they moved Damien and Lily's belongings. It didn't take long. They didn't have much. But as Collie watched Lily arrange her purple decorations in her new room, as she helped Damien hang his photos in the living room, she realized that having less had never meant being less. That evening, the three of them sat on the back porch, watching fireflies dance in the yard. Lily was asleep between them, exhausted from the move and the excitement. "I keep thinking about the bank," Collie said quietly. "If those men hadn't come in that day, if you hadn't been there, we never would have met." "Guess something good came from something terrible," Damien said. "The best thing." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You saved my life that day. But you've been saving it every day since. Showing me what matters. Teaching me how to live, not just exist." "You saved mine too," he said. "After Lily's mom died, I was just going through the motions. Working, parenting, surviving. You reminded me I could still feel. Still hope. Still build something beautiful." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds, holding the ones they loved. In the distance, the city sparkled with lights and endless motion. But here, in this small house in Havenbrook, the world was perfect, just as it was, small, quiet, real. And finally, Collie Rhodes was home. 2 years after the bank robbery, Havenbrook Community Center held its grand reopening. The old warehouse had been transformed, fresh paint, new equipment, expanded classrooms, a full kitchen for cooking programs, and a workshop where Damien now taught carpentry full-time. The Rhodes Foundation had funded every upgrade, but more importantly, it had sparked a movement. Other companies had followed suit, investing in community programs across the city. Collie stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd of families, local business owners, and community leaders gathered for the ceremony. Damien stood off to the side with Lily, now 9 years old and still devoted to purple, though she'd added silver stars to her wardrobe palette. 3 years ago, I thought success meant corner offices and quarterly profits, Collie began. I measured my worth in deals closed and revenue generated. Then one Tuesday morning, I walked into a bank and my entire worldview changed. She paused, finding Damien's eyes in the crowd. A man I'd never met stepped between me and danger. He didn't know my name or my net worth. He just saw someone who needed help, and he acted. That moment taught me something crucial. Real wealth isn't what you accumulate. It's what you give away and who you share your life with. The crowd applauded, and Kali continued. This community center represents a new kind of investment. Not one measured in returns, but in lives changed. In kids learning skills that will serve them forever. In families finding support when they need it most. In neighbors becoming community. She gestured to Damien. The man who saved my life that day now runs our youth programs here. He teaches carpentry, mentorship, and something more important, he shows up. Every single day, he proves that one person choosing to care can change everything. Damien stepped forward, clearly uncomfortable with the attention, but willing to bear it. I'm not good with speeches, he said, his voice carrying across the space. But I know this. Every person in this room has the power to step forward when someone needs help. You don't need a military background or special training. You just need to decide that other people matter. That's what we're building here. A place where everyone matters. Lily tugged on his sleeve, and he lifted her up so she could reach the microphone. And we have really good snacks now, she announced, making everyone laugh. After the ceremony, Kali walked through the center with Monica, who'd become the foundation's director. Enrollment is at capacity, Monica reported. We have waiting lists for every program. And 3 other community centers have requested similar partnerships. Then we expand, Kali said simply. That's what the foundation is for. She found Damien in the workshop, showing a group of teenagers how to properly join 2 pieces of wood. His patience was infinite, his encouragement genuine. This was where he belonged, where his skills and his heart aligned perfectly. That evening, the 3 of them sat in their backyard, now complete with a garden Lily had helped plant and a workshop where Damien built furniture in his spare time. Kali had learned to cook, though she'd never matched Damien's skills. They'd learned to navigate their different backgrounds, finding harmony in their differences rather than conflict. Miss Patterson from the bank called today, Kali said, referring to the older woman who'd been there during the robbery. She wanted to thank us. Said her grandson just enrolled in your carpentry program. Damien smiled. He's a good kid. Reminds me of myself at that age. Just needs someone to believe in him. Like someone believed in you, Kali said softly. Like someone saw me, he corrected, taking her hand. Really saw me. Not what I'd done or where I came from, but who I was trying to be. Lily looked up from her sketchbook, where she was drawing the 3 of them as superheroes. Daddy, can I ask you something? Always, Ladybug. Do you think Mommy would like Kali? The question hung in the air, tender and important. Damien pulled Lily onto his lap, considering carefully. I think your mom would love that you're happy and safe and growing up with people who adore you. And I think she'd be grateful to Kali for being part of our family. Lily nodded, satisfied, and returned to her drawing. Later, after Lily was asleep, Kali and Damien sat on the porch swing he'd built, watching the stars emerge. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Giving up the penthouse, the prestige, the corporate power? Kali laughed softly. Not even for a second. I thought I was building an empire. Turns out I was just building walls. You and Lily showed me the difference between success and significance. She squeezed his hand. I'd choose this life 1,000 times over. Even the part where you have to watch Mona for the 100th time. Especially that part. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from truly knowing someone. In the distance, the city continued its endless motion. But here, in this small house in Havenbrook, time moved differently. It wasn't measured in meetings or deadlines. but in pancake breakfasts and homework sessions and the small, sacred moments that make up a life well lived. 3 years ago, a gunshot had shattered everything Kali thought she knew. And from those fragments, she'd built something infinitely more valuable than she'd lost. Not an empire. A home. Not success. Significance. Not isolation. Love. Sometimes, the worst moments of our lives become doorways to the best ones. Sometimes the person who saves you teaches you how to save yourself. And sometimes, the greatest wealth we can achieve is finding someone who sees our worth without ever asking our net worth. Kali Rhodes had learned that lesson in a bank lobby, surrounded by terror. And every day since, she'd been living the gratitude of that impossible, beautiful second chance, because some rescues don't end when the danger passes. The best ones are just beginning. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.